Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Mick, thank you for the warm welcome and the kind words. We've been talking for 2 years, super excited, my first time in Poland, and having some great conversations so far. Today I'm going to talk to you about sending smart cold emails. So before I jump in, let me see you raise your hands if you send cold emails out right now, or do it for sales, marketing, what have you. Awesome. Just shout it out. What's your response rate? Now, okay. So it can be improved, right? Hopefully, by the end of the presentation, you will improve it, or have at least things you can use to improve that open rate. My name is Sujan Patel. I do a lot of different things right now. I have a handful of companies. My main one is Web Profits, a marketing agency. We help people pretty much grow. We work with a lot of B2B SaaS and also e-commerce. Very growth focused, not necessarily the conventional thing where we focus a lot more on middle, bottom of the funnel, as well as post-acquisition marketing like customer advocacy and whatnot. I also have Grant Ventures, which is the parent company of Mailshake and a handful of other tools. But I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to help and talk about cold email. So before I jump into things, this presentation, I'm a marketer by trade. I've been doing this for 13 years. This presentation is really about a marketer's take on outbound emails and cold emails. What does that mean? I'm looking at data. I'm looking at CPCs, click-through rate. I'm looking at metrics like I'm testing, A/B testing, not just subject lines, what you would do in a normal cold email sequence, but I'm looking at this as if I was run Facebook ads. I'm looking at this as if I were to run a marketing campaign or content marketing campaign, a social media campaign. And that's how I look at cold email, like looking at the psychology, the behavior behind what you say, the words you use, and those types of things. And my general rule of thumb when it comes to cold email, or any type of email, even email marketing, the biggest thing to focus on is not open rates, click-through rates, it's the response rate. Even if it's a no, even if it's not a successful engagement, the response rate is the key to knowing if your campaigns are performing profitably, they're working, and if you're not annoying people, right? At the end of the day, you can't, a click-through rate, an open rate is not going to tell you if the person on the other end hates you. And oftentimes that is the case. And that's going to be the case in a lot of sales jobs, but at the end of the day, response rate is the ultimate metric to focus on. So I'm going to walk you through about 13 different things you can use to improve the response rate and the success rate of your outbound emails. First and foremost, and this is the single biggest mistake I see in all types of cold emails, is that there is no clear call to action. There is no clear ask. Like, what do you want me to do? Oftentimes this is because the call to action is so far down the email that it is like I've already made my decision, I don't care, or the person on the other end has never going to get to your call to action, or the call to action is really big. So what I recommend here is in your first email, make your call to action very, very prominent, very, very simple. You should be able to say your ask in one sentence, in 3 to 5 words. It's not that complicated. And what I recommend for higher success rates, so you can get that relationship started, is to actually make your ask or your call to action small. Reducing the friction is going to increase the engagement rate, so meaning you're going to have another conversation with them. And I'll walk you through a couple different steps later on about how to actually do that. But if you can get that conversation started by keeping your ask super small, like for example, instead of asking to jump on a call, maybe you send them some information and ask if they are interested in your tool, or if they've ever used or heard about your company. It's super simple to get that engagement going, and then from there you can keep the conversation going. If you make it about them and ask the question about them, it actually works well. Number 2, and this is a really, really important thing that can dramatically improve your success rate and your open rates and everything down the funnel, is to follow or engage somebody on social media. Engage them on Twitter. Even if that's not your core channel as a company, Engage with them on Twitter, LinkedIn for B2B. I wouldn't go as far as Facebook, but you'd be surprised how easy it is to connect with people on social media. The reason why it's awesome is because one, it's a public area. Two, they don't know you're gonna sell them something. They don't care. If you can engage them with good content, even following and liking some of their recent stuff will help you get on their radar. And when you send that cold email afterwards, it won't be as cold. It will be somewhat warm. And there's a tool or a couple tools I like to use to get this. I use Clearbit Reveal, the Clearbit API. So essentially what I'll do is I'll take my spreadsheet of contacts I'm going to send out and run it through Reveal, where they have an API essentially that will find all the social media profiles associated with those email addresses. Or I'll hire an intern to get that information and essentially engage with them. I'll have that intern, or I'll just go through myself and go and follow everybody on Twitter. And it works so well because it's not that hard. And this one thing can turn that cold email into a warm email. So two things here. First and foremost, leverage your marketing assets, right? So your content from your blog. Again, I'm a marketer. When I think of sending a cold email, I'm thinking, how can I email somebody and give them value? And not necessarily give them value to where I can sell them something next, but how do I give them enough value that they want to buy from me? So as a content marketer, I try to provide as much education value as possible to the point where somebody's asking the question, what are you selling again? I'm interested, just because you've given me so much value. So send your ebooks, send content from your blog, make sure it's relevant to that person. So in that same spreadsheet I talked about, when I have the social media profiles, I'll actually have that same intern find, essentially add another column of the blog post or links to content that would be relevant for them, so that when I go in and customize the outreach, I already have that content ready. And it is a couple extra steps, but it reduces annoying the crap out of people, the person on the other end receiving an email and just blatantly not interested. And two, it dramatically increases the value of what you're sending. So it's not a cold email, it's an email that you are sending of value. And the second part of this is actually to use link-based retargeting, something like retarget links. There's a couple other softwares out there that do the same thing, but essentially this will retarget people based off of their link, if they clicked on the link or not. And that helps you because, yeah, you might have site-wide link retargeting, but with retarget links or any other tool like that, what you can do essentially is send third-party content. So you don't have to now send content only from your site or your blog. You're not limited to that. You can send content from anybody's site, and then over time, you can remarket to them. What I usually do with retargeting on that front is I run more content ads. I run demo ads. And essentially, I'm trying to do subliminal messaging or subtle messaging that gets me on the radar of those folks and keeps them kind of semi-interested or maybe even engaged. So when I send another follow-up email, they may know who I am. This is really, really important. Customization, but not too much. What I found from sending about 10 million cold emails in my career, again, more for marketing, link building, guest blogging, from a marketing perspective, asking for something in return, just as if you were to sell, I found that customizing the very first thing, the very first sentence, and the very last sentence to be the most impactful. Now, it is harder than it looks. At the very least, customize the first sentence, because it is going to essentially, it's the first thing somebody reads as soon as they open an email, and it will be in the first split second that they read. If the first sentence is somewhat personalized, they're going to go and reduce their bar, because what the people are looking for in an email is, oh, is this relevant to me? Is this a sales pitch? This looks canned, right? If it's none of those things, they might read further. And that's not something they're like spending minutes on. This is kind of a split-second decision. And that's where that first sentence really, really comes in place. And all the tools out there, whether it's Mailshake, Woodpecker, what have you, they all have custom fields or text replacements where you can essentially dynamically insert things based off that spreadsheet. So you can find the things like not just name, but what's their company, what's their blog, what have they done, or what's content that's relevant to them. Go deeper than just the first name. That's the basics. And as you can see, customization actually dramatically increases the response rate. Yes, it helps with the open rate a bit,
But you can see here, 6% for non-personalization versus 21%. That's almost 4x. It works that well. The next thing is to make sure, and this is really, really hard. It sounds super easy. I can say it in one sentence, and I'll have, we'll open up for Q&A at the end, but keep your emails short. Keep them 3 sentences. I look at my emails as if I was writing a Facebook ad, as if I was writing an AdWords ad. If a couple lines, you have limited characters, and AdWords will say, screw you, it's too long. It doesn't make sense. If your Facebook ad's too long, it's not going to perform. If it's irrelevant, it's not going to perform. You're going to waste dollars. That's the same thing with your emails, except you don't have that information. You don't have a system immediately blocking you from doing this. So that means your emails end up getting long. You should be able to say whatever the heck you're trying to say in 3 sentences. And really, the first one is something about that person. The second thing is what the heck you want. Describe what it is that you are doing. And the third should be your call to action. Now, if you can distill what you're offering is into that, you've got something. Now, don't just take my word for this. Test against your other offers. But I guarantee this is going to work much, much better. You're going to get a much better response rate because people can read this in a few seconds and know if it's relevant to them. And especially if you're sending good content up front, you're not really selling, you're essentially giving value. Now, if you can't do this, which I understand, it is very, very difficult to distill everything into 3 sentences and still be relevant and helpful and informational without being, essentially canned. At least, at the very least, make your email scannable. Here's an example of a scannable email. As you look at this, you see an intro, a couple sentences, you see essentially an intro and a couple bullet points and a call to action. It's very clear how to read this. Now, as a human being, I'm not reading the whole thing, I'm scanning. So what I'm scanning for is those bullet points, and are they providing value to me? So the great thing about this is that scanning or keeping your email scannable will help you get people read those clear points that you're doing instead of the other parts of your email. The next thing is to review your email manually or scrub your list. This is the list building side of things. You can use services like Bounce List, Email List Verify. There's a handful of them out there to essentially scrub your list, especially if you're buying it. This is going to help your spam rating go down drastically. And trust me, once you hit that spam rating, you don't come back from it. There's email-based and domain-based and IP-based. Either one, you're screwed. So scrub your list. Make sure they're good. Making sure you remove the bounce, like the clear invalid emails. And then manually review it, take it one step further. Again, do it yourself, hire an intern, Odesker, what have you, and review for things or people who just don't make sense, right? There's clearly people on your list that probably just don't make sense. Remove them, right? If you're gonna send an email out to, essentially the world, yeah, you're not gonna get a great response rate. Yes, it's gonna get marked as spam, and it's just not gonna make much sense. And my next point, stalk your customers or potential customers on social media. Find out what the heck they do for fun, right? Yes, this is probably what you're gonna probably do on a sales call, but go one step earlier. Get to know who the heck you're talking to, and that one custom, like that first sentence or that last sentence, personalize it. Show them that you know a little bit more about them. You know their favorite basketball team, football team, what have you. I'm not into sports, so I wouldn't know any of that either way, but there's something clear on social media, and you can probably find it in the first sentence on Twitter, like their bio, their tweets, their LinkedIn profile. You can get a sense of their personality. If they have an open Facebook profile, you can check this information out. And again, you can use an intern or a person. It's not easy, it still takes resources to get better quality lists. And essentially what I'm doing here is recommending things that can help you get smarter at thinning out your list, filtering through your list, so that you're sending more impactful messages to people that you want to contact. Now, with that 3-sentence max phrase I said, it's hard to have social proof. It's hard to list out your customers, or how do you show that you are a real company, a big company, not just somebody off the block, or even if you are, how do you puff your chest to make yourself look good? Use your email signature. The email signature is the perfect place to put all the little things. oh, we have over 10 million customers, or we've done this, we've been featured in this, that, and the other, top X company, what have you. But that's the ancillary thing, because right as somebody's going to that call to action, your email signatures, if you keep your email short, hopefully it's right there, and they're kind of looking through that. So it's the right point to add your social proof. It's like adding testimonials. It's like adding logos to your website on a landing page, just as you would to get a high conversion. Right below that conversion, or that click-through rate, or sorry, the call to action button on your website, your landing page, you have testimonials, logos. That's exactly what an email signature is all about. And instead of the typical follow-up like, hey, I just wanted to follow up to see where you're at with this, or I want to see, follow up for something, because let's face it, prospects do disappear from time to time, or actually, it's the other way around. Prospects don't disappear from time to time, and they actually are prompt at responding. But for those who aren't prompt at responding, and when you have to follow up, send more content. Instead of saying, hey, I was wondering where you're at. Hey, I read this article that I think might be helpful for you. And you can do this years down the road. You can pick up leads from this as well, from old disengaged people. You just have to be relevant. And yes, this is gonna take a lot more time than just saying, hey, where are you at? Or in your email sequence, just adding a follow-up if no one responds or opens. But in your email sequence, if you do that, send another piece of content. It could be generic, and no one's gonna know if it's, most people won't tell if it's preloaded. So instead of having a follow-up based off of just time and send a piece of content. And what I found from our studies at Mailshake, we're an email outreach tool. We've sent about 6.1 million emails this year. And I found that email subject lines with 5 words or less have dramatically higher open rate and than those who are longer. Now, why is that? It's because it's short, it's sweet. Your email subject line is your ad text. It's your headline copy. If it's boring, it's too long, it doesn't fit them, they're not gonna open it. It's that simple. So think of your subject lines as ad text. And you wouldn't keep your ad text, you wouldn't make your ad text boring. In fact, like I said, on AdWords and most advertising platforms, you have a word count limit or character limit, so it prevents you from actually going too long. Now, again, as a marketer, when I write content, and this is done by, I believe Upwork, or not Upwork, there's a couple publications like Elite Daily and a couple of those types of sites, BuzzFeed and whatnot. What they do to get better headline copy is they write 25 headlines for every single article they write. And every writer does this, and it forces them to kind of describe the problem or what they're talking about in different ways, and essentially forces them to have optimized for themselves. Now, just as you would do on a blog post, and again, you may not be relevant, but as marketers would do for content they create, you should do that for your subject lines. Now, I'm not saying go test 25 subject lines. That'd be a waste of time. But what I am saying is, as you write 25 subject lines, you're gonna find a lot of them suck. Well, get them out of the way. You're gonna self-validate. Get your colleagues to look at it. As a group, as a sales team, look through which the best ones are and test only the best ones. And when you write 25 and you send dozens and dozens and dozens of emails or different campaigns, naturally you're gonna have a lot more practice and you're gonna get a lot better at subject lines. And only if you actually try are you gonna actually get better. And I mentioned this before. I said, hey, like let's personalize your emails. But I recommend not going overboard with this, because over-personalization ends up with you in a very specific situation. If you get it wrong, you back yourself in a corner where somebody's just not gonna be interested because you've maybe made a mistake. So don't go too crazy with this. Don't over-personalize. Only personalize the first and last. Again, this is kind of from my experience. The first and last thing is what matters. That meat in the middle, whether it's a bullet point, a sentence, or what have you, is where people are going to anyways. The first thing is just to get them to actually look at the second thing. Now, the key takeaways for my presentation, and I'll open up to Q&A in a second, are first and foremost, engage with them on social media. Engaging with somebody makes that contact not cold. It's a warm email, or at least a little warmer. Number 2 is to keep your email short and scannable. Nobody's gonna read something, a blog post on an email. Nobody cares about what you're selling. Nobody cares about your company. They care about themselves. And that's what I've learned in advertising. So how do I keep my emails? How do I make my emails about them? That's the key here. And lastly, use content your marketing team is already creating. Trust me, they have it. If you spoke to your marketing counterpart and asked them what's the best content, or what's your favorite blogs, what's your favorite blog post, not just from our site, from the industry as a whole, get them to send that to you and use it in your sales. And I was supposed to say a slide of how I'm going to get my next 10 customers, but I'm not going to do it through sales. I'm a marketer, and how I'm going to get my next 10 customers is actually using good content, ebooks, and blog posts. So check out our book, our cold email book called playbook.mailshake.com, and that's how we end up getting our next 10 customers, because we've created a lot of content. So where most people, we just keep educating, and adding value to the point where people just end up buying because we give them enough value. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Perfect. We're going to open up for Q&A. And while I run up to the top of the stairs to give the mic away, I'll start with the first question. Where do you go for kind of like content inspiration? Is there a newsletter that you literally love to get? Like who's doing it right that you should kind of go away and sign up for their newsletter tomorrow? Including yourself, by the way. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, so what I do is I go on like Sales Hacker, I try to look at Growth Hacker, I look at all the communities out there, inbound.org. The great thing is there's just so much stuff out there, and it's actually relevant to sales, because most of growth comes from sales. The marketers most of the time tee it up, and the salesperson closes the deal. So I look at all the marketing content. I look at like Pipe Top has a great blog, and I just follow the links. That's usually where I find most of the content, and I don't actually subscribe to many newsletters. I use like Founders Grid and a handful from others. Heath and Shaw's is a really, really great newsletter. Lots of valuable content. What I do is I just follow the links, and every single day, everyone's busy here, so I add a lot of stuff to my Pocket, and I suck at reading because it just takes me a lot longer. My eyes are bad or whatnot, so what I do is actually add it to Pocket, and it can read it to me. So when I'm in my car or whatever, I'm just listening to random articles, and I just kind of stop or skim through it. So that's the way I consume content.
Hi, Sujan. So cold mail doesn't stop on a first email. So I'm just wondering, like, what's your typical schedule for follow-up emails, and how long will you continue to build this relationship with someone?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So follow-up in general really depends on who you're selling to, what size companies, and how quickly they move. The larger the business, the slower they're going to move. I try not to be super annoying, so I usually set up follow-ups like a week apart, general rule of thumb, and sometimes I'll kind of add to it. The key is to be intelligent about and stopping automation. So like I have follow-up sequences kind of queued up weekly if they don't respond but they open or engage on some of the content, or even we have like for our product, I can only speak on kind of our product here, but we have a Zapier integration. So like if somebody has downloaded an ebook, I'll follow, and they haven't like responded back to our email, I'll follow up a week later. But if they respond once, I'm gonna turn it off and then keep the manual cadence going.
Hi Sujan, thanks for great tips. I have a question regarding your sales and marketing team, because I assume you're a busy guy. Could you tell a bit about the structure which you have? Like, do you have somebody who's checking the emails, somebody who's checking, I don't know, the sales rep? Like?
Yeah. So my marketing team is fairly light. So on the SaaS side, we're bootstrapped. So we don't have the luxury of money to invest in teams. So we're 3 people. Myself included. I'm a salesperson, kind of. I'm more of the practitioner that comes in to tell, kind of discuss strategy or help people with onboarding and educate on the phone and be kind of dynamic. I have one kind of, I wouldn't call them an SDR or BDR, but really they're looking through emails. They're looking through our lead funnel mostly is inbound, right? So there's a content paywall, meaning if you download content, that's not necessarily a lead, but if you do it a couple of times, we'll reach out. But there's inquiries. We have an email person who kind of validates and scrubs through to make sure that content is relevant. And then we have a salesperson who then manages that whole relationship. I usually come on the second call. So the first call is more understanding the client or potential clients or customer situation, what they are actually doing. A lot of time, our salesperson who is actually jumps in a lot of my marketing calls to learn can answer some of the basic stuff. From there, what we do is we go and actually look through what we can help the client with, and then I jump on to present that information. I go and disappear, and my salesperson kind of goes and closes it. I may come on if I need to do a follow-up.
Hi, Sujan. You mentioned the tool to get all the social media profiles of your mailing lists. We have like a very low ticket that we sell. Do you think it might work with automating that you basically follow everybody that you have on your list?
Yeah, I definitely recommend engaging on social media, whether you're going to be, so are you asking, just to be clear, your email list or like your outbound list?
Yeah, so we have like a big email list, but the volume of records is so big we would need to just automatically follow everyone rather than use
definitely
labor.
if you can automate it, definitely automate it. There's tools like Cicito that you can actually discover it's more on the social selling side. You can discover relevant people, but yeah, I would use that API and follow. If you're talking about tens, hundreds of thousands, you need to space it out, but yeah, you can definitely automate it.
Next question. Thank you.
Again about social media. How do you engage people in social media to get, what kind of action is the most successful to get engaged with people, to get in touch?
That's a great question, and it's actually simpler than you think. The answer is, first and foremost, I use Twitter and even LinkedIn as an example. Follow them. That's it. On LinkedIn, if you just view their profile, and I found that if you're on the sales side, I did this when I was recruiting a VP of marketing for a client. I said hiring a VP of marketing for a hot software company or B2B SaaS company, and my title, like that LinkedIn allows me to put. And so anytime I view someone's profile, it's like they're seeing my name with my subheading. Simple as that. The other thing you can do is start to engage with them. Comment. Now comment's pretty big ask. You can like stuff too, or favorite on whether you're on Twitter or LinkedIn. That's it. I wouldn't do 10. I would just do 1 or 2, and then you can either contact in that 24-hour period or the next 72 hours. I've found to be the most successful.
Thank you. Next question, bud.
Hello. I was actually wondering, what is your strategy regarding attachments? So, for example, because you're sending links for downloads, but do you find attachments relevant, or is it something like, let's say, risky and you can be pigeonholed as the spammer and so on? Do you use attachments at all anymore?
Nope, no attachments. Attachments will get, most ESPs and their virus scanning and in anything related to attachments and the size of the attachment will have a big wall, meaning they were going to look through it somehow, whether it's a bot, flag, whatever. So that's automatically getting you more scrutiny than you need. So I don't do any attachments. I usually do links to attachments, and even that, links these days in an email can trigger spam rating as well. So the world of kind of spam detection is getting so sophisticated that I don't do any attachments ever, and I even minimize the links. I try to keep 1 link max per email, and that when I mentioned about the response rate is a key, even link tracking, having link tracking because it's going through a common domain can get you in the spam. So most times I don't even do link tracking.
And do you consider potential links in your signature as one of those singular
Yeah.
ones? Okay.
Yeah,
so if
definitely.
you have something in your signature, then you wouldn't add another one.
Yeah, I mean, what I try to do is keep 1 thing in my signature. I'll typically link it to a page that will then, it will be like a social proof landing page where it has testimonials, it'll have the number of customers, what have you. Pretty much I just want them to, I'll use the copy of the signature to engage somebody to kind of click through, and then the page to essentially prove my point.
Any further questions? Okay, my last question. I get people asking me sometimes, do you think the sender, the from address, is coming from the CEO? Does it make it maybe less realistic that it was sent personally or directly, or do you think it's really good to say I'm the CEO and especially from a starting company, any kind of advice for, the from? Should it be from the team? Should it be from
that's a good point.
salesperson, etc.? Yeah.
So if you're a startup, if you're selling to a B2B audience, coming from the CEO, if you're SMB, coming from the CEO has a huge weight. It works better generally. If you're selling to an enterprise customer, if you're selling a $100,000, $500,000, $1 million deal, the CEO is the exact opposite. You don't want to send from the CEO. I remember at my first agency, I didn't even call myself CEO. I called myself like director of marketing, just to like diminish, like to downplay my value when I'm doing outbound and talking to customers. That like we are bigger than we look. The other thing to kind of note about the sender, the from, which is really really important. When you're depending on what country and region you're sending to, but in the U.S., you need to use kind of common names. If I send from Sujan Patel, open rates suck. Like my name's like this spammy Indian name, right? Like you just can't pronounce it normally, right? And I'll admit it. It's not normal, so people don't like not normal. If I sent it from like Sean Patel even, it works better. So the name is really really important. Not to say kind of having go make normal names, but your name is your name, but have a nickname or send it from a commonality. I found generally from like our link building days, I tested all these different names and Nicole was the highest success rate. I don't know why, but Nicole worked the best. Not saying go use Nicole. It probably doesn't work anymore, but having a common name and a nickname will work well.
Perfect. Well, can we give a round of applause, please, to Sujan? That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you.